Dan, you are now live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, July 24th, 2021 meeting of the East Lansing Planning Commission. Mr. Menzer, would you please call roll?
I'll be happy to. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Member Cahill. Absent. Member Sullivan. Appears to be absent. Member Williams.
Yep.
Oh.
Sorry about that. I am present, attending remotely from my home in East Lansing.
Thank you. I do see Commissioner Cahill has joined us. We're just calling roll, Commissioner Cahill. For one more meeting, we've got to do the attend remotely thing. Well, he's here.
We'll catch him on the
Commissioner Boyle.
Present, attending remotely from my home in East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Commissioner Wolf.
Here, attending remotely from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Commissioner Lapine.
Present, attending remotely from my home in East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Commissioner Wagner.
Here, attending remotely from my house in East Lansing, Michigan.
Commissioner Bowman.
I'm present, attending remotely from my home in East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Here, attending remotely, East Lansing, Michigan.
We'll circle back to Commissioner Cahill.
Here, attending from my home in East Lansing, Michigan.
Thank you.
Quorum of 8, thank you. I will thank everyone as we continue on our way through and the use of this not so new technology, and thank you in advance for your patience for any troubles we might encounter. I'll remind all members of the public that you will have a chance to speak with the commission during our public comment section of the meeting and during any public hearings. We have none of those tonight. Each commission member will also be called on individually to speak during each item. Commission member may say pass if they do not have a comment for that item. Commission members are reminded to state their name before speaking or making motion and so on, and that all votes of consequence will be taken by roll call. On that note, we'll move us on to item 1.2, approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve that agenda.
Boyle, so moved.
Wagner, second.
That's been moved by Vice Chair Boyle and seconded by Commissioner Wagner. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, let's have a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries, bringing us on to item 1.3, approval of the minutes of the June 23rd, 2021 meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
Williams, so moved.
Seconded, Lapine.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Commissioner Lapine. Is there any discussion on that motion? Oh, Commissioner Cahill.
Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting, but and I don't have a copy of the minutes in front of me right now. I can't get access on my iPad. But in the right towards the end, there's a statement attributed to the chair that seems to be distorted. Didn't make sense reading it. If someone has it in front of them, they can tell me. And then the following paragraph, the thought is never finished.
Thank you.
Can anyone see that to see what I'm talking
I don't
about?
have it in front of me either.
Looking.
Thank you.
It's something about in continuity or something.
Yeah, I think I found it. It says, Bowman said it is more obvious from the hotel side of the in continuity.
Okay. We can go back to that passage and listen to it again and get that corrected.
Okay.
Please. Thank you for that, Commissioner Cahill. I noticed it myself.
And then the very next, I'm not sure what it's supposed to say, but I'm sure it was not that.
Thank you.
And I wasn't at the last meeting,
Sure.
but the next paragraph has an issue also.
Commissioner Williams, did I see your hand?
I'm just reading the next statement says this is a reference to you, Dan, further stated that a brick or concrete wall may not be the best thing for that area, which has full vegetation and mature trees. Boyle said if the commission waits until after the ZBA makes its determination on whether to allow the 8-foot fence to stay, I think, and then there's a comma. So I think something's missing on that final statement.
Thanks for catching that. We'll make that change.
Thank you. Any other corrections to the minutes? All right, then with those in mind, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the minutes, the modified minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, that motion carries. We have no committees to file any reports, or the one active committee doesn't have a report to file. Is there a staff report, Mr. Menzer?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I intended to write down project updates on the agenda. Well, I'll get that corrected next time, but I'll go ahead and do that now, if that's all right. I noted, well, actually in our pre-meeting conversation about, and I think I mentioned it at our last meeting, but this is, don't celebrate, but the last digital meeting for now, or virtual meeting for now, planning on being back at, actually in this case, the Hannah Center for the meetings in August and September, and then back to the courtroom, which is, I understand, where you typically are after that. So certainly more details to be announced, but that's the plan moving forward. So enjoy this last meeting on Zoom. I do want to report on just some project updates. City Council did meet last night. That's the only time they've met since the Planning Commission last met in June. They voted to approve the MSU FCU project out on West Road. That was the construction of a new branch office. So that was approved by council. And just something that may come your way soon. They voted to deny an outdoor seating, a temporary outdoor seating proposal for the Harper's Brew Pub and Restaurant at 131 Albert Avenue. And but instead of in doing so, directed the applicant to apply for a concept plan, because the if you're familiar with this project, or if you read the packet, they proposed a seating plan that was a really larger in scope than the spirit of the outdoor seating ordinance, the temporary outdoor seating ordinance. So instead, what we're hoping the applicant will do is come back and put together a concept plan for review by the Planning Commission. So I don't think that you've seen a lot of concept plans. It's a provision in our ordinance under the site plan process whereby they would come through with a concept plan. It's really just kind of schematic in nature, showing what they would like to do. Planning Commission actually hold a public hearing and provide some comments. They could also get comments from the DDA and City Council, and that would give them some surety as they plan to put together longer, more detailed plans, a survey and that kind of thing, in order to ultimately apply for a formal modification to their special use permit and site plan for that project or for that property. So that should be coming to you hopefully at a meeting in August, and I'm working with the applicant on that process right now. Outside of that, I don't have any other projects that are coming your way in the coming month. Also, I wanted to follow up on a request from a member or one of the commissioners with an update on Hub 2. And I had to learn about this project. Obviously, I'm in the area, but wasn't aware of that particular one. The current status of that project is really just on hold. So they provided, it was discussed at council in February of 2020. They had some comments, some critical and some supportive. And are really, I think, going back to the drawing board with a plan. We have not been, I understand, in contact with the applicant. So there's nothing imminent in terms of a proposal, but certainly they're considering the comments that were made by council, and we may see them again at some point in the future. That's all I've got to note for now. I will keep you in the loop on the location and future meetings, but plan on Hannah Center in August.
And just to clarify, Mr. Menzer, our scheduled, I believe we had a meeting that would have been scheduled for the 28th, but it sounds like you have no business for that meeting right now.
As of now, we don't have any business. I was going to touch base with you to see what you wanted to do with that, but I don't have any projects for sure.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Menzer? All right, then. That'll move us on to commissioner announcements. Do any commissioners have anything they wish to announce? Commissioner Cahill.
I was going to announce that I'll be out of town for our next meeting, but it's
Maybe not.
irrelevant.
Thank you. Well, I'll make a note.
Me too, actually. I'm gonna be out of town the 28th.
And I will also be out of town, so.
I think you're getting a sense, Mr. Menzer, about what we'll likely do in terms of scheduling that meeting. If there is no business. Any other comments for or concerns or announcements from commissioners? All right, then that'll bring us on to the public communications from citizens. This is the time in our meeting when we invite members of the public to come forward and make comments on items that are on our agenda or may not be on our agenda and would just wish to bring to our attention. We do have one piece of written communication from Ted Lambrecht regarding our old business item 7.1. This is a letter from Arbor Forest in support of the applicant's proposal. But Ms. Urdialis, and that's the only, to my knowledge, the only written communication we have. Ms. Urdialis, I believe that we only have the applicant here as the other member of the public, but if you'd be so kind as to ask her if she'd like to make comments on something else.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
The speaker, Terry Fitzpatrick, if you're interested in speaking, I will unmute you. You are now allowed to speak.
Thank you, but no, I'll wait until our item's discussed.
Thank you.
Won't have long to wait. And that's the end of our list, Ms. Urdialis.
Yes, that is everyone.
Thank you. And so with that, we'll move us on to, we have no public hearings, so that'll move us on to our only item of old business this evening, item 7.1. This is a request from the Boji Group to modify a condition related to fencing and material for an approved special use permit and site plan at 1100 Trowbridge Road. Mr. Menzer.
Thank you very much. So there's a there's a staff memo in your packet. I don't have a lot to report, but since the last meeting, at the request of a member on the commission, we did have so the city has a contract with this company called Top Notch Tree Care. So I visited the site with that company, and they did a very, very preliminary review of just the area. Really no details. They don't have any plans for a wall in that area at all. To just look at the existing vegetation and give a really off the cuff kind of perspective on could a wall in that area work. So this is by all means not necessarily fully researched, but just kind of a glance. So they noted, you'd see the bulleted items in the staff memo, the type of tree that is in the area, and the opinion of this individual as to whether or not a wall would impact the health of trees. They seem to think that the work could be done. It performed carefully, and certainly the recommendation that the new wall be moved as far east as possible. There is just a little bit of room if you've been to the site in the stones on the ground that you could possibly move the wall maybe 6 to 10 inches further to the east. And then a recommendation that if work does proceed with footings, that it be done later in the year after summer, and so that you can, and that those trees in the area would need consistent water. So this was just an attempt to try to provide some feedback on the request from the commissioner, and hopefully this provides just some background information. I do also want to note that the ZBA has acted since our last meeting. They were at the July 7 ZBA meeting, and the variance request for height, if you remember the fence is currently 8 feet tall, was denied. So the fence will need to be moved down to 6 feet in height. I have included a motion to recommend approval to council with a couple conditions here for your consideration tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Menzer. Any questions for Mr. Menzer? Vice Chair Boyle?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is, and I'm embarrassed I don't know the answer to this, is the ZBA determination subject to council approval, or is that a final determination?
It's a final determination. Yep, their vote is final.
Okay, and my second question is, the fence along the back of the property line of the hotel appears to be 8 feet. Is it?
By back, do you mean north property line?
Yes, I do.
It's I measured it. It's not quite 6, so it was supposed to be at 6. It depending on where you know. It's at the kind of the crest of a hill, so it's around 6 feet tall, depending on where you measure from exactly and which location you measure it at. But it's right around 6 feet tight.
Because it does seem from the photographs in the material that was provided, it doesn't seem to be that much shorter than the wooden fence that we're concerned about.
I think what you I've been to the site a few times now, and in my experience, I don't know how to do this on Zoom, but the site goes up as you go north. So I don't know if it's a visual trick or not.
The land may drop away as it goes to the south.
Right.
Okay.
Commissioner Wolf, did I see your hand as well?
Yes. The first thing in our packet is described as an application supplement. Can you explain that, where that came from? And
Yep, it was from the applicant. I called it a supplement. I guess it could just be a communication. I just picked a term, I guess. But it's a packet of information provided by Ms. Fitzpatrick, just elaborating on the request and providing some more information for you.
on, let me see if I can find it. On the third page of that, the text in 2 places refers to the work that was done as refacing the existing fence. Could you explain that?
Sure.
Before we were told that it had been replaced, and I think to me those are 2 very different things.
Yes, in my opinion, the fence has been replaced. I've heard that term reface now a couple times, and you certainly can ask the applicant about it. I've been to the site, and it is a new fence, and I think that is shown in the pictures. There may have been some. What I'm hearing from the applicant is there may have been some posts that were maybe reused, but if you look at the fence, it is a new fence.
Okay, yeah, thank you then.
Any other questions from Commissioner Cahill?
As I understand it, we've had no sort of input or reaction from the apartment building owners.
So the letter in your packet tonight is from Mr. Lambrecht, and he is part of the ownership group of the Arbor Forest Apartments.
I see.
Any other questions for Mr. Menzer?
Yeah, can I ask
Sorry,
a quick
Commissioner Wagner?
question? I want to go back to what Kathy was talking about, the height of the fence. I mean, I'm looking at this fence, these pictures, and it doesn't look like it's 2 feet taller than the brown fence or the cement or whatever it is fence next to it. It looks like it's maybe 3 inches or 4 inches. If they take it down, I mean, I haven't measured. So let's say it actually is 8 feet and the wall next to it is 7.5 feet. If they, I mean, is the ideal to have it the same height as the other two fences of different material, or is it to actually be 6 feet? And therefore, if they cut it down, it could be lower than the other 2 fences.
I think you're correct. So I did measure the fence. So the wood fence in the northwest corner is 8 feet tall. The fence on the north side is approximately 6, depending on where you're at. Due to the slope, it goes up as you go north. So if that fence, which based on the
what
ZB,
about the height? Did you measure? Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, please. Were you asking about the brown wall?
Yep.
So the brown wall varies in height, but it's
Sorry,
between. What's that?
Go ahead, Mr. Menzer.
Okay, so the
Sorry, I think I kept freezing. So
Oh,
did you measure the brown
yeah,
cement
it's
wall
between
as
7
well?
and
Right
it's.
there where it meets the wooden.
I will not miss the Zoom meetings.
You're fine.
It's just because there's a delay. Not, I don't mean any offense.
Understood.
So it varies between 7 and 8 feet tall. There definitely is, when the wood fence is reduced down to 6 feet tall per the Zoning Board of Appeals decision, it will be smaller than the brown wall that's there now. And due to elevation, may not line up exactly with the wall on the north property line.
Any other questions for Mr. Munzer? Vice Chair Boyle, I presume that the question had to do with the wall, the brown wall.
Yes, I mean, it just, this isn't a question, but it just seems nonsensical to have it a different height or different level, eye level, than the two adjacent walls. That's nuts. So I'm wondering if we can somehow work around that by saying that the fence shall be no higher than the existing adjacent fencing.
I suspect if that's the case, then that will perhaps have to be represented to the Zoning Board of Appeals? Or,
Yeah.
or the grade would have to be built up around it?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Can we build the grade up around the fence? Because it, you know, it doesn't make sense if it had to drop down there, only to rise again when it meets the adjacent fencing. That's nuts.
Agreed. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Menzer? All right, Ms. Ordalis, would you let, oh, Ms. Fitzpatrick's already, I see she's already joined us. Good evening.
Good evening.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add, or will you take questions?
I do, and I just made the assumption that everybody is familiar with the site, so I didn't talk about how we started. It was that old Holiday Inn site. Everybody knows the site, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for allowing me here again tonight. A couple of things on the fence, since that was a little bit of a discussion. Yes, it will look extremely awkward. We'll have 7 foot, 6 foot, you know, and then whatever that other fence measures up to, depending on the topography. I would say that the ZBA had a tie 3-3 vote, and the chair and the more seasoned members of the board very much advocated to allow for the 8-foot fence there. It was the newer board members who didn't think that fit into a special condition. But their focus was on, I thought, a little bit other than the condition. So I wanted you to know there was really good discussion on that. And there was people advocating very hard for what was a practical and reasonable outcome. So unfortunately, there wasn't 7 people there, so we didn't get a 4th vote. And we haven't done anything to the fence now, pending the outcome of this. I would just say a couple of things with regard to the information from the arborist is that, you know, as Mr. Menzer said, it's very vague and very general. What I think he was certainly not aware of is that all of Arbor Forest apartment, all of their greenery and trees and shrubbery is on our property, 3 to 4 feet. And so there, you know, regardless of him saying that's the type of trees, that's a huge concern to Arbor Forest and a huge concern to us, that there be disruption in that area. And there will be, not just because of the planting, because of the 4-foot wide area that we need to get equipment in there to do that if we were to install a brick fence or concrete wall there. I think the other important thing is that nobody sees this wall. You can't see it from Trowbridge. You barely see it from the apartment side because of the greenery. You see it back by the dumpsters of the hotel. I mean, you can't really even see this fence at all unless if you're back behind the hotel. So I think that's an important a matter as well. And I you know, do wish we would have gone through these processes at the time when people were so anxious to get that site redeveloped, because I know we wouldn't be having to go through what we are today. Very disappointed in the ZBA's outcome. I understand we can't go back to them for a year. And I've already talked about what I think perhaps was the cause of that outcome. But you know, we think this is the ZBA's decision to go down to 6 feet is not going to look good there. But then again, I'm at the same time telling you that nobody sees the fence anyway. So, you know, we're just hopeful that we can keep the fence in place, lower the height of it to meet the ZBA's requirement with as little possible nuisance to the adjacent property. We certainly know we're not going to be permitted to go onto Arbor Forest property to do anything with the fence if that's needed, which we would need a license or some type of right of entry. And there is not hardly any room on the east side to move anything over at all, not just because of what exists there, but because we meet the self-park requirement that Marriott reflags, that the Marriott flag requires with what we have there now. So we wouldn't, if it moved, it would move over inches. It wouldn't be enough of a difference to matter to, you know, the entire development. So again, we're just really hopeful we can keep the fence in place. And there was the question about the refacing. Is it reconstructed or refaced? I don't know what the proper terminology is. What I was trying to convey is that the fence is in the same exact place it was before. It was just in poor condition, and we shared with Arbor Forest the cost of installing a new fence that looked nice for the development and for Arbor Forest. So I think that's all, unless if anyone has any questions they want to ask me. I, again, appreciate your time.
Any questions for Ms. Fitzpatrick? Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, just to clarify my question, you are saying that the old fence was removed completely and a new one was built in its place?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So it was not refaced.
I mean, some of the posts might have been saved, but I mean, you know, most of the fence was reconstructed.
Right. Refacing would typically mean that you left the posts, you left the rails, and you replaced all of the vertical boards on it. So
right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions for Ms. Fitzpatrick? And I've got just one. I just want to clarify, you'd mentioned about the self-parking requirements. Are you suggesting that if the fence were to be moved more than a couple of inches to the east, it would start to remove some required parking spaces, or
yes.
a required parking space even? Right.
We wouldn't move it any further. There's a curb like there. We wouldn't move it. I mean, like Mr. Menzer said, there's only maybe 8-10 inches to work with there. It's not like, and it's already encroaching on our property. What we're trying to preserve is for our neighbors anyway at this point. So,
sure.
Yep.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, then if you wouldn't mind sticking around in case other questions do arise. But without that, it's to the pleasure of the commission as to how you want to proceed. I'm personally of a mind to think that given that we have a letter of support from Arbor Forest, and that I mean, it seems to me that you're talking about some potentially substantial footings in order to hold up a block or a brick wall. I mean, that's going to be at least, I don't know, 16, 18 inches wide, the footing at the very least, and then whatever substructure underneath is going to be 8 to 12 inches wide. And is that worth the risk, the potential risk to this mature shrub that I don't know how to pronounce? Tuja, something like that. Vice Chair Boyle.
Well, and I have similar thoughts. And in addition, first of all, this is my neighborhood, and Arbor Forest is my neighbor. I'm within 2 blocks of Arbor Forest, and probably 3 or 4 of the hotel. I don't find anything objectionable with the way that the wooden fencing looks in that location, either from the hotel side, it's neat, it's well constructed, or from Arbor Forest side, where it's really not seen at all because of the vegetation. This is a situation where you had 2 neighbors try and solve a problem in a way that could have been an expensive, litigious problem in a way that satisfied both of them. I understand the zoning code talks about 6-foot maximum height for fences. this is not a residential neighborhood of the sort. This location isn't where you have two houses next to each other and somebody's plunked in a fence that's higher than 6 feet. This is an apartment complex that's nicely landscaped, but an apartment complex with multi-story apartments in it, next to a hotel, which is multi-story. And they have installed a fence that preserves existing vegetation that's important to the apartment complex, that satisfies the separation requirements size-wise of the original special use permit. And I think it's terribly unfortunate that this issue got raised at this point. I think it's unfortunate that the ZBA had a split vote that resulted in a denial of the application. But certainly I support granting the request of the applicant in this case. I would be satisfied with a stipulation or requirement that the fence not exceed in height the 2 sections of fencing that it bridges. I don't think it does by much, but if that satisfies everybody, then that would be acceptable to me. But other than that, I think the application should be granted.
Would you like make a motion? Would you care to make a motion to that effect, please?
Yes, I move to recommend approval of the modification of condition number 15 of the special use permit and site plan approval for the commercial development located at 1100 Trowbridge Road to allow the approximately 58-foot long wood fence to remain. Condition number 15 shall be read as follows. The developer shall add a 6-foot new brick wall connecting to the existing wall on the west side of the property, with a new brick wall constructed along the north of the property. Approval of the modification shall be recommended to City Council for the following reasons. The development meets all applicable ordinance requirements. The proposed wood fence provides adequate screening between the commercial development of 1100 Trowbridge and the adjacent multiple family development to the west, and preserves the plantings located on the adjacent resident, whatever we called it, the adjacent multiple family development. And then all other conditions shall remain in effect, and a revised memorandum has to be filed.
Thank you. Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Williams,
Second.
support.
I heard
Cahill.
Commissioner Williams. Thank you, Commissioner Cahill. We'll give the opportunity to speak on it in a minute. Vice Chair Boyle, do you want to speak to your motion?
I think I've already
Yeah,
given
you
my.
have. Just giving you the opportunity. Commissioner Williams?
I had the opportunity to take a look at the site as well, and I certainly didn't see anything objectionable on either side of the current arrangement. I don't really agree with the decision of the ZBA, but I guess that's beside the point at this point. I suppose this could have been processed in a way that might have been a little less clunky, for lack of a better word, but here we are. And I don't see any reason to delay the resolution that the neighbors have struck for themselves and all seem to be in favor of. So I support Commissioner Boyle's motion.
Any other discussion on the motion? Commissioner Cahill?
Yeah, I'll be supporting the motion also. I think it's a shame that this fence has to be lowered from where it is. I remember in the original discussion of this project, having concerns that the wall should be higher to protect the apartments from streetlights early in the morning. And now we're lowering the fence. But it's just too bad that it wasn't handled differently by the ZBA.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to be in the minority on this, but first of all, I want to say that I'm still pretty disturbed about the way the applicant handled this issue. And it seems almost unprecedented to me that they fully understood what was being required of them by city council on that, along that property line. The final site plan that they submitted to the city shows that it is going to have a 6-foot wall there where the wooden fence was. And then somehow they decided that they did not need to do that. And they didn't do it, did something different instead. Now we did, I think, hear something, I can't remember if it was from the applicant or there was some mention of them having discussions with city staff, I believe, perhaps Mr. Haywood. And that's fine, that would have been a good thing to do, but you certainly don't go ahead and follow up by not following the requirement without getting something in writing. You know, if they actually did get something from Mr. Haywood or someone else from the city saying, okay, yeah, that what you're planning would satisfy the condition that council put on you, get it in writing. It's almost unbelievable to me that a group like this that could develop a whole property with a hotel and a retail center and, you know, would not get that documented. So I find that very disturbing about this development. Second, I think the ZBA did the right thing. And I say that with 6 years of experience on the ZBA. If you really follow what the rules the ZBA has to follow, it's very hard for me to see an argument that could be made that there is something so different about this property that the fence should be taller than 6 feet. I'll also point out that our 6-foot fence limit applies across all properties in the city. That if city council, any of our current or any past city council had wanted to allow taller fences along commercial properties, they've had every chance in the world to have done that, and they have never done it. The limit is 6 feet, regardless of what properties it's being built on. And furthermore, it's been mentioned here that the fence is practically invisible. The only place you get a good view of it is from the parking lot of the hotel. So I don't think Arborforest is even going to notice whether it's a 6-foot or an 8-foot fence. It's going to make no difference to the people there. So it's very, very possible to follow the ordinance and I think have no significant impact. And the applicants could have done that from the beginning. It's hard for me to understand why they did not. Seems like I had something else I was going to add to that, but I guess that's it for now. I'm also going to propose another condition on this, but I'll wait and see if others have comments on the main issue.
Any further discussion on the main motion? All right, Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, I'm tempted to explain my rationale first, but I guess I'll make the motion in the proper way, and then if I can get some support, then discuss it. I haven't written this out, but I'll move another, how many conditions? Well, to add another condition that the applicant and the owners of Arborforest must come to an agreement about where the lot line lies between them and on which property the fence in question is located. I'd like to make that a condition of going forward with this correcting the fence problem.
All right, that's the motion. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'm not seeing any hands, Commissioner Wolf. Though I would be interested in knowing the rationale for that. Maybe you and I can have that discussion at a different time. So the motion dies for lack of a second. That brings us back to the main motion. Is there any remaining discussion on the main motion? All right, then, Mr. Menzer. Commissioner Wolf.
Sure, I'll go ahead and give my rationale as part of my concerns about the overall project.
That's fine.
It just seems unbelievable to me that we can have this kind of a dispute when there has been a survey done, and we haven't heard the issue from the Arbor Forest side. You know, we got a letter from Arbor Forest. Mr. Lambrecht does not even mention the issue of where the fence is, yet we're hearing repeatedly from Ms. Fitzpatrick that she's being told the fence is not on the Boji Group's property. I think it's just a ridiculous issue, and to have them bringing that up, I think it should be settled before this property, this site plan is completed.
Very well. And council will certainly be aware of that, your concern, I think.
And
certainly,
also,
please.
Sorry, to follow up on my earlier comments, I'll be voting no on this because I believe the fence should be limited to 6 feet. And I won't say any more than that.
That's fine. And of course, Ms. Fitzpatrick has heard your concern, and we'll carry that back to the Boji Group. Any remaining discussion on the main motion? All right, Mr. Menzer, could we please have a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Cahill.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan. Absent. Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf.
No.
Commissioner Lapine.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
Commissioner Bowman.
Yes.
Commissioner Hendricks.
Yes.
The yeses have it, 7-1.
That motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Fitzpatrick, we wish you best of luck as you proceed forward with City Council on this matter.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
This request will be, this request will be on the council's August agenda.
Thank you. We have no new business. Are there any commissioner concerns? Item 9 on our agenda. Vice Chair Boyle.
I'm wondering about the housing study that we have received a copy on, and I know it's been presented to council. I don't know if any additional information has been presented to council, but there's a lot of food for thought in the study, and I'm wondering if there's going to be an opportunity for communication either between council and the people who did the study, or between planning and the people who did the study, or both of us, because it does address attracting and developing different types of housing in East Lansing, which is certainly something that East Lansing has been endeavoring and thinking about and considering for some time, but the actual nuts and bolts of achieving that are always a challenge. So I'd really be interested to hear more information from the consultant.
Is it appropriate for me to reply?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it sounded like it was a message passed on, but if you have something you can.
Yeah. So thanks for the question, and I agree. We are anxious to get some more information out on the housing study. So our team has been evaluating and digesting the information, summarizing it. What we've also been doing is taking count of all the other housing policies that the city has had over the years and kind of organizing those, not just policies, but also other studies that have been done and other provisions in the ordinance. And we're trying to get all those together in one spot on the website that's been designated for the housing study. So what I'm hoping to do before the end of this week is get an email out to you with a link to that so that you can begin to study some of those documents, because they do tell more of the story, kind of the history of housing and some of the other efforts that have been undertaken over the years. There's been a lot. I was surprised at how much. So actually my colleague Raphael has been taking the lead on this process, but we're certainly involved, or I've been certainly involved as well. Next steps include, after this email with some background information, what we intend to do ultimately is get a lot of that out. We're in the final throes of getting the strategic plan that I've been calling kind of the bridge document, some policy recommendations about how we get from where we are now into some of the recommendations that are made by the study. So I think ultimately what will happen is there'll be a release of the documents I described, the strategic plan, and then we're hoping to hold a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the Housing Commission to discuss these, and maybe we have the consultant team back so that you can answer more questions. I think all of that's kind of under consideration right now, and where we land on a date and availability of all the different members and the team. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. I know it's taking a long time, but it's just a lot of information to get a hold of. So we're working on it, and I hope to have more information for you soon.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, just a quick thing on that topic. The main thing that drove us to request that in the first place was questions about demand for student housing. I mentioned this at the last meeting, but that the next most important thing in my mind is if what the study can tell us about demand for the new types of housing that we are trying to create in the form-based code residential districts. So I hope we don't lose sight of that. That would be the townhouses and such in the, I forget what we're calling them, R1, R2, the new R.
There were cottages at one point.
Right, cottages as well. So I think it's really important for us to figure out if there's demand for those before we decide we want to create the zones for them.
Thank you. Any other current concerns from commissioners? All right, then. If there are no more, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Wolf, move to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
So moved. Cahill.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Commissioner Cahill to adjourn. Let's have a voice vote on this. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? That motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:50. Thank you, everybody, for your time. And if indeed things prevail and we don't need a quorum, and if any business does come up and we don't need a quorum, then I will see you all in August in person. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Good
all.
night.
Have a good evening.
Good night.